fans, Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register in Nashville. Happy to be here. Kennington Smith, my colleague's been here for a couple days. Kennington, got a couple things on our list today, today's Hawk Central podcast. We will get to basketball. There's huge news there in terms of injured guys returning to the fray. And there was a practice today, but first and foremost, we got to go to Cookout. My first experience. How many times have you been to Cookout in your life, Kennington?
I can't even count, honestly. They built the first one when I was at Georgia. That was 2013. Then they built the second one while I was still on campus. So easily over 100, I feel like.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
4 years. And then all the other times that I've, just been in the South. So it's a Southern staple. We've been needing one in the Midwest for a while, but I'll let you give your own experience of it.
Well, I didn't know what I was doing on the menu. The menu is too extensive. The menu is massive, and it's like chicken nuggets are a side, and like quesadillas are a side to the burger. And then there's like you get two sides, and then you get either a giant drink or a giant shake. A huge drink. In fact, I got the huge drink. There's the
right.
So I went burger, nuggets, and fries, but I feel like Kennington got hush puppies, and I wish I would have got hush puppies. The one I had was good. Cookout. I mean, I think I have to go back like 5 times to like try everything.
Right.
I'm not even try everything. I mean, it's like they have Cajun fries, they have fries. What's your go-to? Was it a good day at Cookout? I couldn't tell.
First time. Yeah, it was for sure. I usually go burger, chicken wrap, or quesadilla and fries, but I went hush puppies, chicken wrap, burger today.
Yeah, you went junior tray, kind of light today.
Yeah, exactly.
Kenny.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I had like a heavy lunch, so I didn't go super heavy on the regular tray, but the options are limitless. And then for people who haven't been to Cookout, on top of an extensive food menu, they have nearly 50 milkshake options, which was like one of the big, like they advertise it on their cup that there's so many milkshake options. So, you have to go a good amount of times to get the full depth of the menu, but definitely need one in Iowa City. It stays open until most locations at least 3 a.m. I think the one here is 5 a.m. So there really is no better bang for your buck, especially on a late night option in fast food, in my opinion, than Cookout. So we need to continue this education and get more people out to these locations.
Yeah. I don't know how they make money, honestly. I mean, they're giving you way too much food, and it's like $7. But anyway, all right, you're not here for Cookout talk. Well, maybe you are, but if you're not, we're going on to football now. Kennington got to practice today. My flight did get in. It was a little late. Couldn't make it to practice, but I read your observations at hawkcentral.com, and we're going to get to some listener questions as well. But for our first down topic today, Kennington, why don't you just give us another report? 3 days out now until the game. What kind of piqued your interest out there today? And are we going to see RPO Hawkeyes on Saturday against Kentucky?
Yeah, I definitely think that we are. I think that was one of the big things that I had a question about with Iowa going into this game is the game plan of the coaches going to be to mold an offensive game plan around Joe Labas' strengths, or are they going to make Joe Labas fit within the constructs of what their offense has been? And it definitely seems like it is the former. We're seeing a lot of read options. That's what they worked on today. RPO was the focus yesterday in the period that we saw. And I can appreciate, I'm sure fans appreciate the fact that the coaches recognize that Joe Labas has a different skill set than Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla have. And this is the perfect opportunity to try to mold a game plan around that in order to win this game. So I think that is exciting just from that aspect alone. Is just, fans wanted offensive change, and maybe this isn't permanent, but it is going to be something different than what they've seen in the past 2 years. So really interested in that. On the offensive side as well, Brody Breck was back at practice today, which is very huge when you think about not only from the fact of just wide receiver numbers, But when you look at the wide receivers that are going to be available, Nico Ragaini, Deontay Vines, both around like kind of like that 6 foot-ish range. So you'd be able to have a Brody Breck who's 6'4", 200 pounds plus, gives you a different dynamic. Red zone or just throwing it up, contested catches, that type of thing. He'll be able to kind of add that element to the pass game, which is obviously a huge benefit. Defensively, big day in terms of working on separation with the defensive line. That's something that they've talked about extensively throughout the year, is getting off of blocks. So we saw a lot of that today. And they were working a lot on pass rush situations, blitzing. They were working on stunts on the defensive line. And no, not to bury the lead, but the biggest news of the day and the biggest thing that I saw was that Xavier Wampa was with the first team at safety, opposite of Quinn Schulte. And that was both in the 4-2-5 look and the 4-3 look. So starter in both packages, Sebastian Castro was at cash. And then when they went 3 linebackers, Jay Higgins was in and Castro was out. So, if you're an Iowa fan who's been calling on Xavier to get a lot of playing time on defense just kind of throughout the year, this seems like it's going to be the game where we really get a chance to see how much growth he's had this year and see him get a pretty heavy snap load on defense.
Well, that is, I've had some messages from my text group that, are kind of saying, hey, I'm excited about this game. I want to see these young guys. And it seems like what you're saying, Kennington, is, on one side of the ball, fans will get an opportunity to see Joe Labas and maybe a little bit different style of Iowa offense. And on the other side of the ball, we'll see how the safety situation plays out. Obviously, they can show the media whatever they want in the glimpses of practice. You never know if it translates for sure, but they also aren't going to waste reps, to throw to throw you guys or us guys off. So it kind of makes sense, really, on the Xavier Wampa side of things, because, when we talked about what he might be able to do in this bowl game, it was like, well, he could play safety when Iowa goes 4-2-5, but when they go 4-3, Castro probably goes back to safety, which is how they list it, and Wampa comes off. But if you want to really develop the guy, a full game at safety, not running on and off the field, worrying about having to, when do I come off, when do I come on, and just doing 60 snaps at strong safety, I actually like that plan more. And then you also kind of streamline Castro's role as well, and you're really just shuttling in Castro and Higgins in that case. You're not running a fire drill between plays. So maybe that I could see it going the other way, like with a Dane Belton, where you got like a third-year guy that can flex strong safety and cash, no problem. But, Castro would be a first-time strong safety in a game anyway. So why not try Wampa as an every down guy? I like it. And I hope that they do that just because I'm interested in it. So that to me is a top line storyline from what you saw today. So kind of exciting, right? Kind of exciting. I like looking forward to this. And Laporta, they're really tripling down on him being QB3, aren't they? We were at lunch today and you were telling me he threw like a perfect ball to Nico. What's going on? Is Sam Laporta going to throw a pass? Is he going to take a snap? What do you think? Does Sam Laporta take a snap on Saturday?
Yeah, that's a funny potential prop on Twitter, like over under 1.5 snaps at quarterback for Laporta, maybe even over under 0.5.
Yeah, I would go. What do you say? Over and under 0.5. What do you think?
I feel like I'm gonna have to go over. I'm just gonna say 1 though. I don't think it's gonna be in a situation where, let's say, they're at midfield and it's a 2nd and 7 and they're just throwing them at quarterback just to put them out there. I feel like it has to be a very specific scenario near the goal line, short yardage situation. Maybe they try something that they haven't before, haven't put on tape. So I'm gonna say over. I'm gonna say he gets 1 snap. But he did throw a nice pass to Nico. I do not expect him to throw a pass in a game, though. I mean, I expect.
Tell us about this pass. Tell us about the pass. What
it was?
it?
It was like like a read option. Read option. He rolled out and just like flung it to Nico. It just kind of like landed in the breast back, and he ran with it. Nico thought it was a good pass. He kind of let out like, I guess like a cheer or something like that. Like it was a nice. He had like a nice catch, like nice pitch and catch. So it was a nice play. I was on the opposite side of the field watching the defense, and I looked over, and I just like saw Sam just like throw it to him. So nice play. They're devoting practice time to it, like you said. I don't think they're out there wasting time. So I think it's kind of one of those things where it'll be on the back burner, like something that they can go to if they feel like the situation is right. But as we're having this conversation, obviously like him at quarterback is not going to be like a central part of the game plan. But it is, again, like that's what these bowl games are for, like getting a chance to put some new wrinkles out there and try some new things in a game that in the long term is very inconsequential. So why not just go out there and try something new, see if it works or if it doesn't. So me personally, I'm gonna say over 0.5.
Okay. All right. Well, you've been at practice.
Right.
I'm trusting you.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of, just different type of things, a lot of read option, a lot of RPOs. I don't think that they're going to try to put a lot of responsibility on Joe Labas's plate in terms of a lot of things pre-snap or complicated play calls or maybe even a lot of passing game. I definitely think they're going to try to establish the run with Caleb Johnson and LeSean and Jazian. And if the run game is rolling, I wouldn't be, surprised if Labas threw less than 15 passes if the run game was working like that, just kind of like take it out of his hands and avoid those mistakes. So I definitely think that this smoke around using his legs and utilizing the running backs in a different way is definitely real for this game. And this is something for Kentucky. Obviously, they've seen RPOs and they've seen read options before, but this is something that Iowa has not put on film all season. So, something that can kind of, put them on their heels as well.
Well, that dovetails nicely, Kennington, into our second down topic, which is text group questions. I've got a lot of them where I'm just going to fire away, a handful of them here in the next 10 minutes, and then we're going to get to hoops. But the very first question, it kind of dovetails with that. Will coaches let Smokin change plays at the line? I like that the text group users just dropping the Joe. It's just Smokin now.
Yeah.
His nickname is Smokin. We got Smokin Joe trending here, Kennington. Will coaches let Smokin change plays at the line, improvise and use his feet, and play some backyard football? You kind of answered it already, but I'm kind of curious to see how much leash there is on the backyard football.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see. I kind of think experience tells us they're not going to let him do much. I mean, he may have to, but I don't think that we know that's not a plan, right? According to the offensive coordinator.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of him changing plays of the line. I imagine there's going to be a lot of looking towards the sideline for, changes or anything like that, which again goes to another thing. There's going to have to be a great amount of emphasis put on preparation and making sure that they're lined up with plenty of time to snap the ball. A lot of times in football games, you see the play clock get down 5 seconds or under, and you have an experienced quarterback who is relaxing those situations. They definitely don't want Joe in those type of moments. So it's going to be very critical that they get the play in, get lined up in good time. So if they do have to change the play, you can look at the sideline. In terms of the backyard football thing, I don't really think that's in the coach's hands. It just kind of depends on how many pass plays they call for him. And if the line or the protection breaks down, then that type of stuff is just going to come naturally. So I think it's going to be dictated on how well they run the ball, how many pass down situations that they get into. But I expect him to use his legs a good amount and improvise a little bit. The question is, when that happens, is he going to be smart and throw the ball away if he has to,
right,
or is it going to turn into a potential turnover? But where do you stand on that?
Yeah, Kentucky has a good defense. That's the one thing about this game is they have a number 11 defense in the country. So if Joe, aka Smokin, runs the ball and gets crunched, it might be Carson May time, and then we may be thinking about Sam Laporta that offense. But seriously, like that may be something that I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know how big the drop off is from Labas to May. I kind of think it kind of feels like to me, based on the conversation from last week's interviews, that they're kind of going all in on Joe. And, they've only got so many reps going into this game, and they want to get him as many as possible. So Iowa coaches intelligently are, I think, saying, hey, let's get him as many reps as possible. Let's get one guy ready to go. And if he gets hurt, Carson May is a true freshman anyway. I don't know. I don't know if that's what their thought process is, but I think that would kind of make some sense. All right. Now, next question. Will we see a LeVar Woods special? User says we're due for one. We haven't seen. Well, we saw one fake punt, but it was not authorized, right?
Yeah.
So, is this the game? This is a pull out the stops game. Nothing to lose, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like there's going to be some type of special teams playmaking involved in this game. There's going to have to be, in order for Iowa to win this game. Special teams is going to have to play a huge factor. Unless they just go out there again and run the ball for 300 yards, I imagine there's going to come a moment where there's going to be a lull in the game. Both teams are going to be, punting or not moving the ball on offense, and one spark play could turn the game on its head. And if there's an opportunity for Iowa to do so on special teams, I mean, LeVar was not going to, hold anything back. We've had a chance to, in these days of practice, watch him in these special teams periods. And it really is interesting how many players on the team are involved in special teams in one way or another. When it's they'll punt period, and there's 2 punt units on both sides, and they're rotating multiple waves of players on each side of the field. It's only a handful of players who aren't involved in those periods. So, just from that aspect, it's really interesting to see how much the team is really invested into that. But I would expect to see, special teams have an impact in this game in some way.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of think the opposite. As far as the LeVar Woods thing, special goes, I kind of think Iowa's just going to go real conservative, and just rely on pinning them back and getting a turnover. But they could get into a bind, like you said, and if it's I don't know, 4th and 6 or something, maybe try a fake punt. We'll see. Here, this is a good question actually, and I did a little pre-search on this. What do you know about the quarterback that is going to start for Kentucky? We don't know who's going to start from Kentucky, right? But Destin Wade is kind of getting some buzz as potentially the guy. Redshirt freshman who is actually from Nashville. Is that what do you think? And then, the guy that has been playing is Kaye Sharon. I hope I said that name correctly. Deuce Hogan has not played, but those would be the 3 options. Deuce Hogan, I think, is the 3rd of the options. But Kentucky could be starting a guy that really hasn't played either in Destin Wade. What do you think? What's your feel on quarterback for them? Do you know much about him?
Don't know much about any of these guys. The one that you said has been playing, I believe he has 29 career pass attempts. So yeah. we asked Riley Moss this a few days ago. Has he seen all 29 pass attempts? And Riley was like, he's like, yeah, we kind of went through that pretty quickly. He doesn't have must tape. Dustin Wade, they're actually looking at his huddle from high school because he doesn't have any game experience. And Deuce Hogan, Deuce Hogan is an interesting case because they have extensive film of him because he was on the team. So they've practiced against him. So they kind of, know his tendencies a bit. So it's kind of like a mixed bag effort to try to prepare for any of these guys. But as far as, having a read on who's going to be the starter, I don't know. But I did ask Jack Campbell about that on Tuesday. And I said, without knowing the quarterback, is this kind of one of those games where fundamentals on defense is going to be the emphasis for y'all? Just focusing on yourselves and doing, kind of the quote unquote little things that they talk about right because you don't know. And he said, basically, it's going to come down to, not missing tackles, being able to key in, not making mental mistakes, which is going to kind of, override everything. So really interesting situation for Iowa's defense as well. So that'll be, really interesting to see how Phil Parker kind of schemes that up.
Yeah, there's a story in a Nashville paper today that they think Destin Wade's going to start. So I guess we'll find out for sure. We hear from Mark Stoops and coaches on Friday. Today's Wednesday. We will hear from. So we'll get a little more like nuts and bolts game day info on Friday with coaches, press conferences, and whatnot. But yeah, a 4-star athletic quarterback, so probably mobile. And, that'll be interesting. A Nashville guy, at least that adds a little spice to the storyline there. Another question, Kennington. Let's get another one or two in here before we move to hoops. Any word on offensive line transfers? Now, that's not related to this game necessarily, but we didn't talk about this yesterday, right? We just talked about it privately, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we talked about the show. So Iowa's poking around with Caden Proctor's decommitment. They've kind of ramped up. That was something Tyler Barnes said on signing day. They're going to be looking at offensive linemen in the portal. 3 names have come up, and want to give hat tip to Blair Sanderson over at Hawkeye Report on this. I know others have probably had these as names as well, but 3 names that have kind of come up. Western Kentucky's Gunnar Britton, 6'6", 305. Started 14 games at tackle for Western Kentucky, as I mentioned, and has 1 year left of eligibility. 6'6", 305. Florida offensive lineman Michael Harqueen, 6'5", 320. He was an 8-game starter at right tackle for the Gators this year. So SEC tackle, but Florida wasn't good, right? Florida stunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they actually, interestingly enough, all 5 of their starting offensive linemen from this year entered the transfer portal. So
hopefully for Iowa, this is their best guy. So he's a grad transfer with 2 years remaining. They're looking at him, or at least I think Tyler Barnes followed him. I mean, again, they're looking. And then the one that sounded the best to me, I don't know what his we'll see if they can make some ground on this, but Cincinnati offensive lineman Joe Huber, he was an every game right tackle for Cincy, 6'5", 305, has 3 years left of eligibility. So that would be the type of, you were expecting to get 3 years of Proctor. Well, here's 3 years of a right tackle, and had of the 3 names I mentioned had by far the highest grade on PFF, which was 79.7. Which, if you follow Iowa's offensive line grades on PFF, most of them this year have been in the 60s range on average. I mean, there's been a few 80s, like Mason Richmond's had some good games, but largely 50s, 60s, low 70s for the O-line for Iowa. So if he has a 79.7 PFF rating, he must be pretty good. So that's another name to look at on the O-line. But again, I was just kind of sniffing around at this point. Just showing you there are names out there. All right, let's move to hoops, Kennington. Fran Baum today. Fran Baum. Iowa licking its wounds after the loss to Eastern Illinois. First time we've talked to Fran since that game. First question out of the gate. Yeah, he expects Chris Murray and Connor McCaffrey. Chris Murray obviously being the huge news here, to return on Thursday at 6 p.m. at sold-out Pinnacle Bank Arena against Nebraska. Your reaction to Chris Murray's return? You covered the Georgia Tech game. I wasn't there. The last time Chris was fully healthy because he got injured early in the Duke game. So Chris had 31 and 20 the last time he was healthy. So that gives you a perspective of how big of a deal this is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, Chris is Iowa's best player this year. And, I know Philip Robacha has been great this year, and Patrick has had some good games as well. But you can make the case that Connor's been the second best player on the team this year. So potentially the 2 most, kind of consistent, highest performing guys coming back at once is really big. And I think that it's big, not only just getting them back on the court, but the Iowa's schedule in basketball, and I think this point has kind of been overshadowed a bit by just how much we've been focusing on everything that's going around with football. But Iowa's entering a stretch where their season could pretty much be defined in these next few weeks. They're already 0-1 in Big Ten play and coming off of a really bad loss to Eastern Illinois. And their next games at Nebraska, at Penn State. Then they have Indiana, who is the preseason favorite to win the Big Ten. Then they go at Rutgers, really strong opponent. And then they're coming back home for a 3-game slate, but that's Michigan, Northwestern, and Maryland. Then they got to go at Ohio State. So all of these games are going to be tough, but all of these games are going to be really critical. So to be able to get these two guys back into the fold at really the most important stretch of the season that could kind of define whether they're going to remain in the NCAA tournament hunt or maybe fall into that NIT range is huge news for the program. And, we're all going to be paying close attention to, how Chris looks coming back and how the team performs on the road. And, what's going to be a tough environment. I mean, it's sold out. And Nebraska isn't a great team, but they've beaten Creighton and they've taken, I believe it was Illinois to overtime. They've taken
Purdue, number one Purdue.
Right, they've taken them to the wire. So not a great Nebraska team, but probably better than the one from last year. So Iowa's definitely going to have to come to play.
Yeah, definitely. Like Connor McCaffrey was telling us not too long ago, like Nebraska's way better this year. And you just look at the results. And they have been really competitive. I mean, they beat Florida State by 17. Like you said, they won at Creighton by 10. That was a preseason top 10 team. Went to overtime against Purdue, held Purdue to 65 points in overtime. Fran talked today about Nebraska's defense being much, much better than it was last year. So it will be up to Iowa's offense to kind of get back on track tomorrow against the Huskers. And that's going to be, I personally think that the return of Connor is almost as big. Not obviously not as big as Chris Murray, but he does give that sense of calm, the spacing on the floor that you need. Really, you start limiting turnovers when he's on the floor, and smarter shots always seem to go up when he's on the floor. So I'm pretty optimistic there. And if you look at Iowa's KenPom predictions over the next 5 games, let's say 6 games. Nebraska, at Penn State, Indiana, at Rutgers, home against Michigan, home against Maryland. Those are 2 borderline top 25 teams. Iowa is projected to be in a 2-point game at Nebraska, a 4-point game at Penn State, a 1-point game against Indiana, 5-point game at Rutgers, 4-point game against Michigan, and a 1-point game against Maryland. So these are all going to be kind of how you play that day type of matchups. It's not like, hey, we should win this, we should win that, we might lose it. It is you are in a neck-and-neck dogfight pretty much from now until the end of the Big Ten season, where it could go either way. Right now, KenPom projects Iowa to go 10-10 in the Big Ten, but Iowa probably has to do a little bit better than that to make the tournament, maybe 11-9, something like that. So, especially with that loss to Eastern Illinois. Anything else on your mind here today, Kennington, as we approach the 30-minute mark?
Yeah, I think what you just said lastly about their Big Ten record, the loss against Eastern Illinois puts them in a tough spot because they are going to have to overperform expectations to balance out that bad loss. And I don't know how many wins that would take to cancel out. Maybe maybe a win, Illinois and Purdue at the top of the conference might cancel that one out, or maybe 3 or 4 wins against the middle of the Big Ten might cancel that out. But they're definitely going to have a winning record in conference, I believe, to sway the committee. And looking at last year, I mean, they didn't have a quad 1 win until, into February. And that was without any, really true bad losses last year. And this one is not only a bad loss, but people on Twitter have seen that this is a historically bad loss. So to be able to kind of wash that away, they're going to have to come to play. And I think that this first initial stretch in Big Ten play is going to be really, really, really important. I mean, like you said, after those 6 games, if they can get out, to have a winning record in Big Ten play after those 6 games, and then we're getting into like the Ohio States and Michigan State at the end of the month, and then they have Illinois at the top of February. If they can build some momentum at the end of January, then you feel good about where the team is at. But this is a true gut check time for the basketball team. But I think that's kind of why Fran scheduled such a tough non-conference schedule. He knew the team was going to be able to handle it. He knew that this was going to be a pretty veteran-led team. So this is going to be those moments where they're going to have to rely on that veteran experience to kind of turn things around.
There you go again, ending it on a downer. No,
I don't really know if that was a downer.
Well, you're just saying. I mean, it's like NIT if they win the go 4-2 in these next. No, so they would. It's a huge stretch. You really laid it out nicely there because you can't like drop to 1-6 in the Big Ten. I mean, that would be bad.
Yeah,
especially since they're 0-1 now. Yeah. 4-2. I think 4-2 in this 6-game stretch, I think would suffice.
Yeah,
because there's 3 road games in there and 3 tough home games.
Yeah, I would say, I think that is, definitely doable. 4-2, they'll be 4-3 in Big Ten play, and I think that critical stretch where I believe it's Michigan, Maryland, Northwestern, those 3 home games in the middle of January, that's going to be key. Fan attendance has been a talking point amongst throughout the season, so I couldn't think of a better time to pack out Carver and create some energy in the building when when those 3 teams come to town.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Hawk fans. Second straight day with the YouTube pod here, but this time we are both in Nashville. Tomorrow the menu is Hawk Central Radio Show on KXNO 6 to 7, so that'll be an audio version. We will record that here tomorrow, and then we will get you something after the coordinators and head coaches on New Year's or on 30th. We're going to talk to Ferentz and Parker. I'm sure there'll be plenty of interest in that. For Kennington Smith, this is Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register saying so long. We're really happy to have you here, but we'll talk to you again soon.